Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Sharmit. In this session, we are going to talk about another very important attribute of HTML forms, which is Novalidate. Okay, so prior to this session, we have already discussed many other different types of attribute that we can use with form tag. So this session is in the continuation of the same, where we are going to talk about the Novalidate attribute. So by the end of this session, we will be able to understand what is Novalidate attribute, why do we use Novalidate attribute, what are the syntax and structure that we are supposed to follow in order to utilize Novalidate attribute in HTML forms. Okay, and also at the end we will verify the output by utilizing this Novalidate attribute. Okay. But before we start the discussion, I would like to recommend you to please go and check out the previously released sessions first, because they all are in proper sequence and sync. So if you follow them sequentially, then it would be very easy for you to understand the ongoing topic. But for now, we are just focusing on the Novalidate attribute. As usual, there is one question for all of you. The question is, why do we use autocomplete attribute in HTML forms? I know most of you already know the answer of this question, but in case if you don't know the answer, then you can check the previous session, because there we have already discussed this in detail. But if you know the answer, then I request you to please do share your knowledge in the comment section so that others can take the reference from it. Okay, and those who will provide the consistent correct answer will be spotlighted in the upcoming session for sure. Okay, all right. So I think now we are good to start with today's topic. So here you can see I have just created one basic HTML page which contain one heading, right? So this is the simple page. Now you can save it and refresh your web browser. So when you refresh it, you will find that HTML by Tech Sharmit has been printed here. Okay. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create a simple HTML form with multiple input fields, and then I will explain you what is Novalidate. Why do we need Novalidate? Okay, so let's start with the form declaration, and also we can keep one comment here so that others can take reference like what we are learning today. So title would be Novalidate attribute in HTML forms. Okay, so let's go to next line. Here we will write form, which is form tag. Then you can write here one button. So let's add the button. Here I will write button. We'll write the text as submit. Then we will write here type. Type is also submit. But although the by default type is also submit, but still we are specifying it so that everything would be clear. Now I'll add multiple fields here. So let's add the first field. So here we will write input. Type would be text. Name would be maybe username. Then we will use placeholder, and here also I will write username. Remember one thing, it is not mandatory that you have to keep both the values same. It is up to you. But in my case, I want to go with that way, that way. Okay. But if you want to put here username and here like you want to write enter a username, that is also fine, because this is something that user will see. This is something that we are using it. We will use it for accessing the values. Clear. Now let's add another input field. This time we will change the type, because I have to explain various things using different types of fields. So let's add number here. Name would be age. Then we will add placeholder, and here we will put age. Okay. Likewise, we will add another input field, and this time input field type would be email. So let's add the type here email. Name would be email, and placeholder would be email itself. All right. So we are ready with three different type of input field with one button. So let's see the output first. It is coming like this: username, age, and email. Perfect. Now what we will do, we will add one tspgm10 here as action. So let's add the action. Here I'll write tspgm10.html and then you can save it. So after saving it, when you refresh your browser, so what it will do, when user will provide data here and click on submit, it will submit the data. How? Let me show you. For example, if I put right here ABC, age is 20, and in email I write ABC only. So what will happen now, if I try to click here on submit, it will validate this thing. That means it is checking if it is the email field or not. So you can see we are not using @ symbol. That's why it is showing that it is not an email. Okay, so it is not an email, that's why it is validating it. So in such situation, when you don't want to validate for these things, or in fact for anything, let me show you another thing. For example, if we have applied required here, okay, and here as well. So but I don't want to make user bound to put the values, although I have specified it, and the purpose of required is only that we have to bound the user. But still, for some time I don't want to follow these kind of validation. You can see it is asking for the fields. If you are not providing anything, it will not allow you to submit the form. So in a condition where we want to bypass all such kind of validation, whether it is a field specific validation or required validation or anything, so in that situation we will use Novalidate attribute. How? Let me show you. So here what we will do, we can simply write here Novalidate, and then you can save it and refresh your browser. Once you refresh your browser and click on submit, you can see it is directly submitting the form without even checking the required keyword. Although we have specified it, right? We have not removed it yet, but still it is not checking for that. That means it is simply bypassing all those things. In fact, if I show you the email thing, now if I click on submit with ABC only, it is accepting that. Why? Previously it was checking for @, but this time it is not checking. Why? Because @ has been bypassed by Novalidate attribute. Clear? So whenever you want to bypass such type of validation, then in that case we will utilize Novalidate attribute. And as I mentioned earlier, this is very important attribute, because yes, in project there are many scenarios where we are supposed to create a form without any kind of validation. Reasons could be anything. Sometime during testing we found that yes, this thing should not be like, this thing should not be there validated at the time of submission, right? So in that case also we can say that we can utilize this Novalidate. Or sometime it happens that we want to submit the form, but for with a validation, but for some instances we don't want to validate or provide everything. For example, let's say we have a form with more than 20 fields, okay, and I'm checking like how the last 2-3 fields are working. So in that case, if I click on submit, it will one by one check validation for all fields and then go for the last 4 fields, right? So it is a bit time taking. So in such scenarios, what we can do, we can simply put Novalidate here for a time being. Then we can test the last 4 fields and then we can remove it. But remember one thing, Novalidate will not with this, like, it will simply bypass all kind of validation. Doesn't matter if you are checking it for 3rd field, 4th field or anything. Okay, it will simply leave, or it will not validate anything for that form. It will simply submit it as users click on submit button. Clear? So this is how we can utilize the Novalidate attribute in order to bypass or remove all kind of, although like they are present here in the code, but still if Novalidate is there, it will not check for these values, okay, and it will not validate it. So yeah, this is how Novalidate works. I hope this part is clear to all of you, and now I request you to please do share your knowledge for this question in the comment section. Those who will provide the consistent correct answer will be spotlighted in the upcoming session for sure. Okay, So please do share your knowledge, and in the next session we will discuss few more things. So thank you for watching Tech Sharmit.